My name's Riley. I'm 18, and up until a few months ago, I worked part-time at this gas station on the edge of town, just off a quiet stretch of Highway 39 in northern Illinois. I've always had trouble sleeping, insomnia, ever since I was a kid. And after graduating high school, instead of lying in bed every night staring at the ceiling, I figured I might as well get paid for being awake. That's how I ended up working night shifts, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m., 5 nights a week. The station itself was pretty small, one of those old standalone ones with just 4 pumps, a single register, and a tiny back office that smelled like burnt coffee and cleaning supplies. There was a flickering light over pump 2 that never got fixed, and the ice machine outside made a weird grinding noise every time it kicked on. My job was simple: ring people up, restock the fridges, sweep the floor, and occasionally deal with someone stumbling and half-drunk, looking for smokes or gas. Honestly, most nights were quiet. Sometimes hours would pass without a single car pulling in. The only thing that ever really kept me company was the hum of the fluorescent lights and the soft static from the small black and white security monitor behind the counter. That thing was ancient, probably older than me, but it worked well enough. It was split into 4 screens, one for each angle outside the store: the pumps, the dumpster out back, and both side alleys. At first, I actually liked the solitude. It felt peaceful. The way the fog sometimes rolled in over the highway, the soft buzz of moths hitting the glass door, it was weirdly calming. But then something changed, something I still can't explain, and after what I saw on that monitor one night, I knew I could never go back there again. It was a Thursday night in early October. I remember because it had just started getting cold enough that I needed a hoodie even inside. Business was dead that night. After midnight, I hadn't seen a single car for over an hour. I was standing behind the counter, organizing the cigarette shelf mostly out of boredom, when I heard a soft click. The monitor behind me refreshed. It does that occasionally, like a quick static glitch, nothing unusual. But then I noticed something. One of the screens, the one facing pump 4, had a figure in it, just barely visible at the edge of the frame. It looked like someone was standing out there. No car, no movement, just standing. That part of the lot is dim. The overhead light above pump 4 is always a little weaker, but I could still make out a shape. It wasn't close enough for me to see details, just a silhouette. Still, I didn't panic. People wander in all the time from the highway, and sometimes folks just stand outside smoking before coming in. I waited a minute or two. Nothing. The person didn't move. They were just standing there, almost like they were facing the building, but not quite looking in. I thought about using the intercom to say something, but I hesitated. Eventually, I stepped around the counter and looked out the big front windows, and that's when it got weird. There was no one there. Pump 4 was completely empty. I looked both ways across the lot, even walked to the door to check if they were just out of frame. Nothing. The place was dead silent except for the usual hum of the overhead lights and the buzz from the soda fridge. I went back to check the monitor again. The figure was gone. Maybe the screen had glitched. Maybe I'd imagined it. I told myself it was late, I was tired, and the brain does weird things when you're bored and running on too much caffeine. Still, I found myself checking that screen more often after that. Every few minutes, my eyes would drift toward it, waiting for it to flicker or show something unusual again. That night, nothing else happened. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been out there, watching. The next few nights were normal, or at least they seemed that way. I kept showing up, brewing the same stale coffee, restocking candy bars, counting how many times the ice machine groaned like it was dying. But that monitor, I couldn't stop watching it. It wasn't like I was scared exactly, and not yet. But I was definitely more alert. Every time the screen flickered, even for a second, I'd glance up, just in case. Then one night, maybe 4 or 5 days after I saw the figure, it happened again. It was close to 3:20 in the morning. I remember glancing at the tiny clock on the register. I had just finished wiping down the counters when I looked up and saw it. Same spot, pump 4. Only this time the figure was a little closer. Still no car, still no movement, just standing there, facing the pumps. Not facing the building, not walking toward it, just standing, like it didn't know what to do next. I froze. I tried not to blink, afraid the image would disappear again like last time. But it didn't. This time it stayed. The monitor flickered a bit, the screen fuzzed with static, but the figure didn't move. Eventually I grabbed my phone, flipped open the live camera feed app that the station manager had installed, and pulled up the outside view from pump 4. Nothing, just an empty lot. But the monitor in front of me still showed the figure, standing completely still. It looked a little taller this time, thinner maybe. The more I stared at it, the more I realized there were no clear features, no face, no clothes I could make out, just a dark shape where a person should be. I stood up thinking I'd open the door and look for myself. Maybe catch whoever it was in the act just to prove it was all in my head. But the moment I reached the door handle, the motion sensor light above pump 4 blinked off. I waited. No one came in. I walked slowly back to the monitor, heart thudding a little harder than I liked. The screen, now completely clear. No figure, no static. Just the still image of the empty parking lot and its buzzing lights. I didn't tell my manager about it. What could I even say? "Hey, I think your ancient security system is showing me ghosts?" I laughed it off, told myself again that it was nothing. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. A few days later, after yet another night of watching that figure flicker in and out of view on the monitor, I decided I couldn't just ignore it anymore. I waited until the end of my shift, around 6 in the morning, right before the early crew came in, and used the store computer in the back office to access the security footage archives. The system was old, clunky, and the software looked like it hadn't been updated in over a decade, but it still stored all the camera feeds by date and time. I scrubbed back to that night. 3:17 a.m., just like before, and sure enough, there it was. Pump 4, that dark figure, standing motionless, facing away from the building. Except this time, watching it from the archived footage gave me a pit in my stomach, because the figure didn't just appear and vanish like before. It faded in, slowly, like it came out of the air. And after about 30 seconds, it faded right back out. No walking, no footsteps, no vehicle. Just in and then out, like a shadow pulled across the frame. I checked the next night's footage. 3:17 a.m. again, same thing. It kept happening. Every single night. I went back nearly 2 weeks, and the figure was always there, always appearing around the same time, always in the same position, always vanishing without a trace. I couldn't understand how I hadn't noticed before. The weirdest part? Sometimes the monitor didn't show it live, but it was there in the recordings, as if it chose when to let itself be seen. Or maybe the monitor was just picking up something the cameras normally filtered out. Later that day, I told my manager, Steve. He was a quiet guy, mid-40s, always seemed kind of checked out. But when I mentioned the footage and showed him a screenshot I'd saved on my phone, his whole demeanor changed. He got quiet, closed the office door, and then he said, "You've seen it too?" That was the first time I realized this wasn't just something I was imagining. Other people had seen it. Steve told me, without going into too much detail, that weird things had happened at that gas station before. A former overnight worker once quit without warning. Another guy started sleeping in the back office between customers and left one morning without ever coming back. They never said much, just left. He said he didn't want to scare me, but he also told me not to work alone anymore if I could help it. Some places, he said, just have something about them. I didn't know what that meant, and honestly, I didn't want to ask. I only worked one more shift after that. I almost didn't go in, but I told myself I was being dramatic, that maybe Steve was just messing with me or exaggerating. Still, I kept my phone on me the whole time, and I left the door to the back office slightly open, just in case. It was quiet for most of the night, normal even. But just after 3 a.m., the power flickered. Not the usual hum of a faulty light. This was a full blink. Everything went dark for a second and then came back, but when it did, the monitor didn't reboot. It stayed off. Dead black screen. A few seconds later, I heard the bell over the front door chime, but when I looked, there was no one. I stepped out from behind the counter slowly. The air felt wrong, heavy, still. And then I noticed something. Cold air. Like the AC had kicked on full blast, but it hadn't. I turned toward the back of the store and froze. There was someone standing in the far aisle, not walking, not moving, just standing. I couldn't see a face. Just the same dark outline I'd seen on the monitor all those nights. But this time, it wasn't on a screen. It was inside. I backed toward the office and slammed the door. Locked it. My hands were shaking as I grabbed my phone to call 911. I don't even remember what I said. Probably something about a break-in, maybe just silence. But the police came. When they arrived, the store was empty. Nothing was broken, no one on the cameras. Except for one thing. In the middle of the front floor, right where I'd been standing earlier, was my hoodie. Folded neatly. I never wore it again, and I never went back. I still don't sleep much, but at least now, I keep the lights on.